That's the Dirty Knobs here on 92.7 KOCF Fernridge Community Radio. And ladies and gentlemen, I have in the virtual studio Mr. Jason Sinay, guitarist, songwriter extraordinaire with the Dirty Knobs. Jason, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, sir. I'm so happy to be here. Happy to be anywhere.
I'm very excited. I am very excited. I tell you, I get more nervous doing this with people that I know than with people that I don't know. It is so much harder to do this. So let's start off. Okay, I got to start off with something that has nothing to do with the Dirty Knobs, because I was watching your live stream and you have acquired a piece of equipment in your recording studio that I want to talk about.
I would love to discuss it.
First, tell people what it is you acquired and how you were able to acquire that.
Well, I'm a very, very big Jerry Garcia fan. And there was a recent auction, Grateful Dead auction from Sotheby's. And there was all kinds of incredible things going up for auction for stupid, crazy money. And I noticed this mixing console. It's this small mixing board that was hand built by some acid hippie in 1970. And that is the console that Jerry Garcia recorded his entire first record on. So songs like Deal, Birdsong, The Wheel, Loser, these were all recorded on that.
That is crazy.
It's literally behind this wall. It's just waiting to go into the shop to get refurbished. And I plan on using it.
Wow, that is just amazing. And it's so cool that you can acquire something like that and not put it in mothballs, but now give it a rebirth so that it can continue on recording.
Exactly. In one way, I would love to just put it in a glass box and just look at it. But I think using it to record with it is going to be a very special thing for me.
Oh, without a doubt. And I would imagine that even after being refurbished, the sound that something like that generates is incredibly unique, especially in these days when everything is digital.
That's right. And my main console in my studio is actually an fully analog board. And I'm going to use this as what they call a sidecar. So I can use that for certain instruments and then use the main one for other instruments. So it's going to be incredible.
So, okay, I've been watching the Beatles series, as most people have, and watching that prompted me to think of questions to ask you about how the Dirty Knobs go into the studio. Because watching them, I mean, all these thoughts pop into my head, and I think, okay, so the Dirty Knobs, they just finished an album, 2 albums. What is it like when you guys go in the studio? I mean, is it fun? Is it silly? I mean, John and Paul are singing songs in other accents and things. Is there that much fun going on, or is it business when you guys go in?
It's both. I mean, it's really, really fun. I mean, it's, for me as a guitar player to be backing up one of my favorite guitar players never gets old. But to do that in the studio also with Mike is such a big deal. And he comes to the party with fully flushed out songs That's the difference. I mean, they're flushed out. They're he can play them by himself on his own. You hear the whole song, and we learn them extremely fast, and we record them extremely fast. I mean, it's some of the songs on the record were written the morning of the session, taught to the band, and recorded all within a few hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an incredible process. And that's something that's really always intrigued me about the recording process is how is that happening? And it's amazing that, and again, I liken the Dirty Knobs. You guys have a virtuosity when you play together. And it seems like everyone in the band can really pretty much play anything at an extremely high level. So when Mike comes in or someone comes in and you have to learn, how long does it take you to learn a song like that?
Well, I'm the slow one. So Mike is very gracious with me in that, you know, if I don't know a chord or I don't know, he's playing these ridiculous chords I've never seen. And he shows them to me. He'll say, you know, come over here, and I'll look at his hands, and I'm a visual learner on guitar, and I'll learn it. And the joke with Lance is Lance knows Mike's songs before Mike even wrote them. You know, like, he just plays the whole thing. And then Matt is so just, you know, got these like Martian antennas that he's picking up on everything. And it's just incredible how fast these guys learn stuff. And I, just by being there, tend to learn stuff at a much quicker pace because, you know, I certainly don't want to be the one holding the band back. And, you know, and we just go for it. We don't do too many takes. We don't overplay the songs. If we don't get it in a few takes, we move on.
And so you guys are not doing overdubs. You four are in the studio and you're recording pretty much live. Is that right?
It's four guys completely live. And then you know, as we go through the recording process, we may add a little guitar part here or some acoustic guitars or some percussion. But the basis of the music is just the four instruments playing.
And so not that recording is easy in any way, but was it a little bit easier for you guys with the first album because you had been playing those songs for so long? It's almost, again, like a throwback where bands would go out and play all their songs for months and months and months live and then go in the studio and record those songs. Is that an easier process than when Mike comes in the morning and says, okay, here's 5 songs, let's learn these?
It's much easier. You know, if we've played them before and we've gigged them many times, it's certainly easier, but it's not easy. It's just, it's weird. It's in some respects, it's so natural and it comes naturally and quickly, but to get it to sound just right, you know, at least for me, I have to completely let go of my brain. I have to just turn it off because I won't play well. I play too tight. I play too rushed. But when I relax and just, okay, if I miss a chord, I miss a chord, and we'll have to come back and fix that, or we'll start over.
Right.
It tends to just flow.
Was it gratifying to be able to finally record in the studio all those songs that you guys had been playing for so long? So
gratifying. So great. Especially, I mean, on the first record is, you know, a lot of the songs we knew really well. And it was just a blast. It was so much fun.
I bet. The sound is so full. It's hard to imagine that there's only 4 of you because the sound is so full and diverse. Again, every song has kind of a different sound to it. There's no 2 songs that sound the same on the first album, and I can't wait to hear the second album.
Yeah, it's like, and the second album is so different. You know, it's really, really different. It's the Knobs, right? And it rocks. Right. But I feel that on this record we grew a little bit. We grew, like we had a record under our belt, and a lot
Right.
of gigs under our belt. And then we just, I don't know. It sounds better to me sonically a little bit. It's just more full. Like you mentioned, how we have this full sound is even more
Right.
full. And I feel that we went in musical directions, in some different directions we didn't really go on the first record. So
It's like you're a real band.
it's like a real band. And it reminds me in a weird way. I mean, I will never equate anything that I'm involved in with the Beatles, but the one thing that it reminds me of is some Beatles records that are, you take the White Album. If someone says, "Oh, I love the White Album," well, do you love Helter Skelter or do you love Martha, My Dear?
Right.
Total
Right.
opposites on the same
Yeah.
album. So
Yeah.
I think we achieved a little of that on this record.
And again, like you say, not to draw that comparison, but I kind of did the same thing watching the Beatles series. I did kind of draw comparisons to the Dirty Knobs unknowingly, because I don't have intimate knowledge of your guys' record, but it just seemed like there was a commonality there, in the virtuosity and the level of musicianship.
Yes.
Maybe not the songwriting parts, because those guys are like on another planet, but the musicianship really struck me as a very similar bond between the four of you, because there was only four of them.
Yeah, it's funny. Watching it, I watched the whole thing. I watched parts of it over and over again. And it made me so excited to get back in a room with the guys. It was so inspiring to watch that. And in particular, I'm a John guy. I love Paul McCartney. Always loved Paul McCartney, but I'm a John Lennon fan.
Mm-hmm.
And when I watched Paul McCartney compose Get Back from literal air, from nothing, and then when you hear that first little bit of melody come out, it shocked me. I was just shocked. And it made me feel such gratitude that band even existed. As a world, especially a world that we're going through so much shit right now, that we got this gift. I watched it in this room. The TV's right there. I mean, I'm blasting it through my stereo, because of course my TV has to go through my stereo, because I like to party,
Yes.
And I stole that line from Talladega Nights. It's one of my favorites. "Oh, man, you have your stereo and your TV on?" And he's like, "Yeah, I like to party." But it blew me away, man. It just blew me away that just the joy they had, and these songs were just timeless.
Yeah.
Timeless.
I was really struck. Yeah. So let's talk about the Dirty Knobs, and how did you and Mike get together? I mean, that's a long history. People don't realize this is a 20-year history. This band has been around for 20 years. So how did you and Mike end up glomming together to make this magical Dirty Knobs thing?
Well, it was a lot of luck, a lot of patience, a lot of things sort of led to it, in terms of on my end, where I was in this band in the 90s. We had this great producer, Don Smith, produced our record. He had done a lot of work with the Heartbreakers, engineered a bunch of their records and mixed them. And Don and I became very good friends after I worked on that record with him. And even after I left that band, and Don worked with me as a solo artist. And one day, and he used to bring me to sessions all the time and have me play on all kinds of stuff. And one day he invited me to a session, and the first face I saw was Mike Campbell, and I panicked. I was like, I'm not playing with this guy. I'm not doing this. And I just want to watch, and they're plug in here, plug in there. Hey, hi, Mike. Hi, Benmont. Hi, Steve. Hi, Ron. It was one of those kind of things. I'm playing with all these guys, these cats that I'm total fans of. And I don't even remember what the session was about or what we were doing, but I just remember that I was waiting for them to tell me to leave, but they did it. And it was very, very, very hard to keep up with these guys.
Wow.
Very hard. And I somehow made it through. And a couple days later, Mike Campbell called me and asked me if I would be willing to come back to do some more work. And I laughed and I said, yeah, I think I'd be more than happy to, Mike. And I think I told him something like, oh, I thought when you called that I left my sweater or something, that you were going to pick it up. But that's how it started. And then once we started playing in the studio together, it was so much fun. We just kept cutting tracks and cutting tracks. For a year, we did that. And then
Wow.
Bob Gray, who you know, my friend
Yeah.
Bob Gray, was having a 50th birthday, and I was commissioned by his wife to put together a band to play all Grateful Dead music at the Joint and play for 2 hours. And I said, are you kidding? I would love to do this for Bob. And I remember telling Mike about it. And I said, Mike, yeah, I'm doing this thing Saturday, and da-da-da. We're playing like Dead tunes, a couple of Neil, whatever. And he said, oh, I'd love to do it. I didn't even
Okay.
So the whole thing changed. You know, once Mike got involved, it got much more serious for me. And it was, I was panicking. But that was the first time we played on stage together, and we loved it. We had a great, great time. And it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of bands, a lot of guitar players, and the interaction with you and Mike, and I've seen you guys many times, but the interaction between you and Mike on stage, when you're both just staring at each other's hands, and it's like, okay, who's gonna go first? Who's gonna follow who? Who's gonna lead who? And yet you both laser locked on each other's fingers. You're not looking at anything else but each other's fingers. And it's a beautiful thing to see the way that you guys interact in every song.
Thank you. It's really, in terms of, you know, guitar bands and, you know, guitar driven type of bands, you know, I mean, maybe I'm a little subjective, but I think this band is as good as anybody. I mean, I really do. I'm very proud to be in this band.
I've been saying that for years.
Yes, I know. You've been championing us for a long time.
So do you remember the first song that you ever played live?
It was either like Big River by Johnny Cash, or, you know, Via the Grateful Dead, or what was that? It might have been Bertha. Might have been Bertha.
And do you, when you write music, and I know it takes you a long time, but do you try and write stuff every day, or is it piecemeal? And everybody, this is the funny thing. Everybody I've talked to recently, everybody says, "Oh, I just talk it into my phone now," or I play a riff into my phone.
Everything that I do goes into this phone. Everything. You know, I use the voice memos as my recorder, and any little idea I get, I throw in there. And then when I want to fish something out, I go through them and listen to them. And there's always some little something somewhere, which was a mistake usually, but it's actually good. And then I build it from there. And I go through phases with songwriting. I do, there's times when I'm writing and writing and writing every day. And there's times when I just don't feel it. I just don't feel it at all. So I don't push it. Right now,
Do you think that music still can have the same impact that it did, say, in the 60s and 70s these days?
100%, especially live. Especially live. Because, and especially after everything we've all been going through and are still going through, live music is, you know, when I saw the Stones recently and on their tour, And it felt like the very first time I've been out and
Right.
enjoying myself and seeing live music. It had been the first time in 2 years, and it was glorious. Just glorious.
All right, so we've been talking about the Beatles a lot. Do you have a favorite Beatles album?
You know, if I really had to pick, it would be Abbey Road if I had to pick. But there's things about so many Beatles albums that I love. I mean, I love Rubber Soul. There's just
Yeah.
something about putting that on vinyl. The sound of the record, the sound of the instruments, the feel, the songs, it's perfect. Doesn't get better.
What I found interesting about a lot of Beatles songs, especially early on, is on the fade out of the song is where you hear George just going off as
Yeah.
they're fading it out. You hear George just going off with these licks that are just unbelievable.
Unreal.
Well, Mr. Sinay, thank you so much for being
You're
on the
welcome.
show. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. Cannot wait to see you guys in March. I'm going to see you in Nashville.
You'll be there?
Oh, yes. Taking a road trip to
Oh,
Nashville.
woo! I'm happy.
Yes, sir. All right. We're going to go out with a knob song. Okay. So this is one of the long ones. And this is, I think, kind of a departure almost. It's Don't Knock the Boogie. And it's
Yeah,
very swampy. This is
very.
like the swampiest song the Knobs do. Talk a little bit about this song.
It's such a cool tune that Mike wrote that is I mean, Mike wrote all of the songs, and this one in particular has a real John Lee Hooker vibe to it. And Mike loves blues. He loves all the real stuff, the old stuff. And he has a lot of that in him. And I think he just brought it, and this song just sort of, it's this great story. And as far as when we recorded it, it was, we really had, I remember thinking, you're playing live in a little club, you're hearing clinking but beer
Yeah.
bottles, and people are crazy. There's a fight over there, and someone's screaming. That's the way that song speaks to me.
Yeah.
So
Good
good.
note to end on. Thank you,
Yes,
sir.
the best. Thank you for having me.
Okay, wait, let me